All right, what is up, everyone? It's Rich, and I have my friend Lee.
Hey
So,
man,
how are you? How are you?
I'm
We've
doing
already
good.
chatted for a few minutes.
What's
Uh,
up?
oh no, I was just saying to them that we've chatted for a couple of minutes. Oh, look, he does have wine. So, quick question: you're still in Italy right now, right?
I am. Yeah, I am. I live in Piemonte, which is like the a more northern region of Italy.
Yeah, very cool. So north of Milan,
Yeah, my
maybe.
idea kind of actually no. Let me. You're gonna put me to the test
Oh
here.
no, no, no.
It's definitely um, east. No, west. I'm sorry, west of Milan. I'm trying to think
Oh,
about
okay.
it. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. So there's no real premise to chatting with you today other than the fact that you're a phenomenal artist, and I'm always trying to learn about drawing and learning. I'm obsessed with learning and how people learn and challenges that they faced, and you're a great person to talk to because one, I've actually known you. It's interesting because I although I'm not prepared for the interview, mentally I kind of ran through like a lot of scenarios. So I first met you at Comic-Con, although I think I remember it a tiny bit better than you before you broke in, maybe a year before you broke in. You were
Right.
bringing around samples of. I was trying to remember. Was it a page with a big monkey on it?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it was. It was. Were you there when they accused me of stealing the
No, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, all right. Okay, I was wondering if you were there in that. All right. Okay, yeah.
Lee got accused of. They used to put these dummy copies of preview books like at the table for. I guess it would have been Wildstorm or Image Comics.
It was at the Wildstorm booth,
Okay.
and actually it might have been when Wildstorm had a section inside the Image booth. Yeah, it was definitely because I remember there was Extreme Studios, Wildstorm. They were kind of on opposite sides that year of San Diego, the same, what do you want to call it, aisle,
Right.
and they shared kind of a wall, and it was kind of the end booth, kind of on the main, one of the main aisles that you can walk through to coast the entire length of the convention center. They
Yeah.
had this long table that was shared by Extreme and Wildstorm, kind of
Right.
on the ends, and that's where they kept the little photocopy book.
Right.
And dude, I was there every day.
Sure.
Look at those.
How old were you? 16?
I was 16. Yeah, yeah,
16,
I
yeah.
was 16, maybe
So
17 at that point in time.
yeah, so I've known Lee since he was 16, although we didn't become friends until he came to Wildstorm. But I did remember you.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I remember it better than you because you probably were. I know you always talk about meeting Sarah Becker at that con.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I met Sarah, and yeah, that was the year that Jim was having kind of like it wasn't really a contest, but he was handing out golden tickets.
Mm.
And Sarah and the other editors, I think Jeff Marriott was another editor that I met that year. He at least looked at my sample.
Right.
And they would kind of choose the people they thought were advanced enough to meet Jim.
Right.
And we wound up having, this appointment in one of the upstairs rooms to show Jim our sample pages. And I remember getting to the top, outside the room, waiting in line, and there's a bunch of people. There was probably 20 people there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Jim walks up. I remember he was wearing a Nine Inch Nails t-shirt too. And I immediately thought, all right, Jim Lee likes Nine Inch Nails. That's cool. That was unexpected. And Jim looked at all of us, and his expression was, "Oh shit, there are way more of you than I expected." He was right up front. He said, "I'm not going to be able to look at everybody's sample pages.
Right.
I'll just teach you guys. I'll just give you guys an art lesson, essentially."
Oh gosh.
And to me, it was, I had, up till then I had thought, this is it. This is going to be the moment I can show Jim my stuff. And it was like dashing of the dream in such in such a hardcore way. I mean, it worked out obviously okay, but at the time it was crushing because, you know, to a lot of us, I remember one dude just took off, and I was like, wow, you know, you have this, at least the opportunity to listen to this guy talk about the craft. And I remember Jim gave a perspective lesson.
Oh,
He gave a perspective lesson and kind of, you know, putting figures and I remember how badass it was just to see him draw the basic grid and draw kind of the outline of the figure. Just even that was kind of exciting. But
people don't understand how important that is. The fact that Jim rolled it back to that exact thing is like something that a lot of people would gloss over, I think, in terms of like a educational cornerstone.
Totally, yeah, totally.
How did you get out to Comic-Con? So Lee is originally from Bakersfield, if I'm not mistaken. You might not have been born there, but you're from Bakersfield, right?
Yeah, I was born in Ohio. I lived in Illinois for a little while, and then my family moved to, oh God, I don't know how old I was, maybe 8 or 9 or something when we moved to, young, you know, pretty young. I grew up in Southern California, definitely. So we moved to Bakersfield, you know, which is one of the worst places in the United States, probably. I mean, I just read recently some statistics that it's considered to be one of the best, or some best. It's considered to be one of the worst places to grow up in the United States. Yeah, I mean, it's just the amount of horrible shit.
Yeah.
You know, that can we curse? I didn't even.
I
okay.
Go crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna fuck right now just to get it. Fuck.
Yeah, but it's definitely. I mean, you know.
So did your mom drive you out to Comic-Con, or did you drive yourself, or how did you get out there?
I had a really close friend whose mom was awesome, and she would take us. I think the first couple of years I went, she took us. And so, yeah, it was, you know, Hotel Circle, and we would go out there and but this was back when Comic-Con was, you know, you remember what it's like. Comic-Con was nothing like it is now. You could show up on Thursday before preview night. There was no preview night at this point. You could show up on Thursday, walk up to the ticket counter, and within an hour you'd be in the convention hall. You know, you know, there was no need to buy tickets ahead of time or anything like that. But it was still huge. And I mean, I think I went 93, I think was my first year in Comic-Con.
So one thing that you're going to notice as I talk to Lee is there's an incredible amount of dedication and drive that he's had forever. And you're going to hear it as I get into his Wildstorm early days and how hard he worked on his art and how committed he was to it. So the fact that you're 16, how long had you worked on samples? Like, what was your approach to samples back then? Did you grind, and like, would you do like where you would draw heads, you know, hundreds of heads and hundreds of hands, or did you hop right into pages?
I just hopped right into pages. I've recently just found, because I just moved, it might be right over there. I don't know, but I just found my samples. And I mean, we're talking about a box that had been taped up for 20 years probably. And I was looking through the sample pages, and I never did those kind of basic drawing exercises.
Right.
And one of the things that, you know, when I wound up getting a job at Wildstorm and eventually working there, and you remember this too, I mean, those guys were sticklers for the fundamentals.
Right.
I mean, guys, you know, and they really knew their fundamentals too. The other guys we were working around, and they could draw anatomy. I mean, guys like Carlos or JJ could take the body apart. Anatomy was their thing. And they could explain to you how muscles attached to, you know, to bone. They could really explain to you how the body moved.
Right.
I never did that. My experience learning that stuff was really Wildstorm. That was that I got into the fundamentals. I was just obsessed with. I mean, it's completely the wrong way to learn, but I was really obsessed with at that point in time with finishing technique. You know, I was really interested in making things look like those photocopies that I saw at the booth. I mean, I would look at those pages, and that was my first real introduction to you know, what it took to pencil a comic book page, or what comic book page construction looked like. And you know, at the time, we're talking about Michael Lopez and Aaron Weisenfeld, and I mean, even Aaron's pencils at the time were really tight. You know, I mean, like those 7 pencils were insanely tight.
So I remember your two sort of biggest influences before you got to Wildstorm, is, if I remember correctly, was Will Portacio, and then it was Aaron, right? Would you say Aaron Weisenfeld and Will?
Yeah. Aaron was definitely, I would say Wills was the first guy who really, I was a crazy fan of Wills. I carried around, do you remember that Heroes ash can that they did of Wetworks #1 in black and white? It had like 10 pages. I carried that around in my backpack at school. I carried that around in my backpack at school for like 2 years. I mean, it was in my backpack every day. I mean, I was a crazy fan of Wils's, and my first samples look like Wills. Yeah, you know, horrible. Horrible. No, attempt at Wills, but and then I you know, if you look at Team 7, #1, that Aaron is something that's a lot like Wills, and it has definitely that finishing technique. And I saw those photocopies along with Michael Lopez Voodoo photocopies, all that stuff, all those pencils, and my mind was blown. But the thing is that guys like Jim or Wills or all the other Howard Chaykin and all the other artists I love at the time, those guys were like so out of the realm of possibilities for me. The younger guys who are working at Wildstorm seem more, I don't know what the right word is. It's not accessible, but they felt like they were doing something that I could relate to more in terms of, you know, they weren't at Jim or Wills levels yet. They were still learning their craft, right? And so I could see the kind of the chassis being, you know, the motor was being built and the chassis was kind of being finished.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Aaron Weisenfeld of today, you know what I mean?
Right. Or even when he got to like the Guardian Angel or Deathblow Wolverine, where he was really like he had fully formulated. I mean, the first issue of Team 7 took him almost a year to draw. So
holy shit.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm just going to touch on Michael Lopez really quick, because I've talked about Mike a decent amount on my channel, so people that have followed my channel for a while kind of know the reference. But people don't understand how impactful Michael was to artists, especially if you worked at Wildstorm. I don't know if people from the outside really got to appreciate how fucking good that guy was. But Mike was Travis before Travis was Travis, in my opinion. Travis was really, really good when I got to Wildstorm, but he wasn't X-Men Wildcats Travis yet. He was still he was incorporating Mignola into his stuff, and it was, you could see maybe Mobius or something creeping in, but it wasn't the look that we eventually saw from him. Michael, on the other hand, was doing illustrated comic work. When I got there, he was working on that double-page spread from the Voodoo Zealot skin trade, where the girl's got the shotgun with the tattoo, and she's sitting there.
Yeah.
That in pencil sat on his desk for weeks as he sort of toiled away on it, just an inch at a time. I've never seen drawings that good in person ever.
Yeah. His stuff blew me away. Something that changed my life, literally, was a moment at San Diego Comic-Con at the Wildstorm booth, and I was I liked his work, but I was still more interested in guys like Aaron or guys like Will at the time. And I was there one year when Mike actually dropped off photocopies of the Penthouse comic stuff he was working on, and Mike dropped those photocopies off at the booth, and I didn't know it was him at the time. I just saw this guy dropping off photocopies, and I think it was Merv he was talking to, or one of those guys, and I I looked at those pages, and do you remember the page with it's like two superheroes, fake superheroes from that store standing in the foreground, and behind it there's this King Kong giant.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that was, I saw those pencils, and it was unreal how good those pencils were. I mean, they looked like works of art that didn't. I mean, they didn't need to be touched. Like, you know, it was insane to see that stuff. And he had other pages that I was kind of glancing at. With one of the pages had the King Kong kind of ape running through the city, and there was little figures, you know. And it absolutely didn't register that was Penthouse comic stuff at all. I thought it was a Wildstorm book at the time, and it just blew me away. The level of the attention to detail, but also just the way he was sculpting those lines.
I remember you being pretty influenced by the reflective quality that he would put like on I know the glass with the reflection of what you were seeing in the street. And
that's Mike. Yeah, that was Mike. His camera, you know, that was Mike's camera, which was kind of, I think, pretty unique, you know, for that moment in comics. He had, and yeah, he was using a lot of reference, and he was, you know, it was very, you know, pinup art and stuff.
Yeah.
But to me, that was almost secondary. You know, it was just like the guy's ability to not only give you these really beautiful images, but he would always pick the weird thing to show you. He wasn't giving you the same thing that Jim or Wilson, one of those guys, would show you, right? He would make you know, a character standing in front of, like you said, like a window, look like the coolest thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And he didn't need to have figures acting super dynamic. He could do that, but he didn't really need it to make the page interesting.
It was interesting how cartoony his layouts would be of his figures. When he got rushed on the Voodoo Zealot skin trade book, it's the proportions, the characters started to get smaller and kind of more toon like. That guy could cartoon his ass off too, and could do great caricatures.
I remember seeing that book, and I had seen the pencils of it first, and then I was really disappointed when the actual book came out.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a tough one to say, hey, you should check out this guy's work, because I think ultimately the book is not anywhere near what the drawings potentially.
Yeah, the pencils were so powerful that when I saw that book, it wasn't the fault of it. It was no one's fault. It was just it was watching this guy go through a development, you know, a process of artistic development in one issue. Right? Yeah. It was like watching a guy start out influenced by Brian Bolland, and you got to the end, and there was like Adam Hughes, Brian Stelfreeze, and then you start to see these other influences, like graffiti influences, come in. And at that time, which must have been, what was that, like 97 or 96 or something? That was pretty.
I got to Wildstorm in 1995, and he was working on that book then, and he worked in the pit. Him, Edwin, Alan M. Were all real tight, and they all still worked in the pit at that point. Yeah, Mike would have those pages sitting on his desk, and he worked kind of weirder hours. They would come in around 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon, and I would work from 10 to like 6.
Right.
It wasn't like, to explain to people, we didn't have to clock in. You could keep whatever hours you wanted. I just happened to work more normal hours, and yeah, rest in peace, Edwin. Yeah, but Mike would leave his art out on his desk, and I mean, it was unreal. But anyway, okay, so now you get to Wildstorm. What level of confidence did you have in your work at that time? Like, when you would get a script, were you like, I can do this? Or did you ever kind of go like, oh, fuck, man, this is going to be some hard shit to draw? What was, like, do you remember kind of the mood? And
I had stupid confidence, but in a completely delusional way. I mean, when I first got to Wildstorm, I thought I was going to be there 6 months. I remember having a conversation with Carlos in the office behind the secretary's desk, and thinking, because I had rented an apartment with my girlfriend at the time in San Francisco.
Okay.
And so I thought that I was going to work there for 6 months, get put on a book, and then I was going to move
Right
up
back. Yeah.
to San Francisco. So I had this ridiculous attitude about learning, attitude about, it was much like much like how I learned art. It was this kind of finish oriented attitude where it was just, the ends would justify the means, and it wasn't until I got to Wildstorm and kind of started to look at the other guys working there at the time.
Yeah.
And there weren't a lot of people there. I mean, the exodus had already happened.
Sure.
Most people had already left at that point in time. But I had never thought about art in intellectual terms before. It was just, to me, it wasn't a higher calling. It wasn't, it was, to me, it was 100% about that kind of joy you get as a kid looking at a comic book.
Right.
That's the only thing that interested in me. There was no, it was Carlos that really opened my eyes in terms of how dedicated he was as a student of art.
Right.
He was the guy who kind of opened up the doors for me and made me realize this is not this isn't just like a paycheck it was never a paycheck to me, but you know what I mean? Like it wasn't just, I'm going to get on Voodoo and work with Alan Moore within my first 6 months working on Wildstorm. Like, I got there, Michael Lopez wasn't turning in pages on Voodoo, that series with Alan Moore. I walked into Scott Doomber's office and I said, if you guys need an artist, I'm available.
Did you fill in pages on that book? I didn't.
No. Nor should I. I mean, I was that precocious, not even precocious. I was obnoxious because I thought that I'm at Wildstorm, right? This is the world is my oyster, and instead they handed me basketball toy designs and stuff like that to do, and I started looking at the work other guys were doing, and that's when reality kind of sunk in, and I was, it was that first 6 months, because you remember, I don't know if it was this way for you guys, probably not, but we had 6 month reviews. So at the end of the first 6 months, if it wasn't working out, Nicole was like super clear with me. She was like, this is going to last, you're going to be here for 6 months, and then we'll review. And if it works, you can stay on. If not, show's over. And so I remember the 5th month mark, I started to sweat because I was like, wow, I haven't done anything that I thought I would accomplish in the first 6 months,
I know.
And by that point, JJ Kirby had gotten in my head, and those guys were talking about comics in a completely different way than I had ever thought really possible. And really, to this day, it's one of the reasons why I always tell people that I'm not real great at providing advice to young artists. Those guys are much better at explaining why they do what they do. A lot of what I do is hard work and instinct, and kind of a combination of the two things. But it's the guys at the studio at the time, even Jeff Campbell, who I didn't really know that well, but he definitely was more of a student of art at the time, and was really, they thought about it in a, it was every day they were going through the learning process, right? And they were failing and learning something new, and yeah, it changed me. That first year, especially, really changed me.
It takes away your security blanket. So, like right now, I'm going through it, and I knew you asked me, like, what are you working on, or like, what are you up to? And look, I had a comfort zone. It's like I knew what I could draw really well, and I was able to sort of take advantage of that, like with the black drawings. But when it came down to it, I was not a self-sufficient artist in any way, shape, or form for drawing comics. I had no core fundamentals really in place, and so I had to work on my stuff for about 5 years to figure out how to really draw. And I'm still, I mean, I consider myself like a year one comic book penciler right now, which can maybe would shock people, but honestly, my stuff is not very good. I can still flex the sort of the muscles that I have, which is what I'm going to do on Blaster Kid. But like this thing I'm drawing for Heavy Metal right now, it's a 150 page series, and it's kicking my ass. I mean, it's like I'm basically at probably like the level you were at when you did like Resident Evil.
Oh my God, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, the learning curve is, you know what, to a certain extent though, you have the benefit of, number one, you're not new to drawing, you know. You may be new to this phase of your career, but you know, you've worked with so many different guys. I mean, you know, you work with Chris Pacello, man. I mean, that guy to me is just one of the best.
Yeah.
Best. I mean, I think being able to absorb that stuff it's there. You know what I mean? It's in your hard drive. It's just a matter of you accessing it in different ways when you're working. But I mean, there's going to be a crazy learning curve just having to do that much work. You know?
Oh, it's hard. And what was funny too is, so they gave me the script and they said, you know, would you be interested in doing this? They're going to announce it on the 11th, so I can't say exactly what it is. But so I read the first 5 pages of the script and I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is stuff that I actually kind of feel like I sort of know. But I didn't read further than that, and I agreed to it. And I started reading further into the script, and I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Are you serious? And I kept reading, and I kept getting to the next page, and I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. I was freaking out.
I'm still in that position. We're nowhere near ready to announce, but the project I'm going to be working on, the next thing that I'm going to be doing long form, there's so much in it that I've never done.
Yeah.
I've never attempted any of that kind of stuff. So it's still hopefully that never goes away. You know, that idea of, I mean, there's going to be some sequences of this thing that'll have me sweating big time.
That's
you know?
crazy.
But it's just, you know, that's comics. You never know what you're going to have to do. It's brutal, man. There's all these kind of, you know, I've gotten to know a few concept guys, and I really admire and respect, you know, what they do. But I think almost anybody you talk to who does art professionally, especially the kind of art we would be into, they look at comics and they're like, man, that's a hell of a lot of work. You know, that's
oh yeah.
You know, I mean, they all give up the respect, you know, because it's difficult job, man. I mean, you got to tell a story. You have to be a production designer. You have to be your own actors. You have to a certain extent, you have to direct. I mean, you have to color time if you color your own stuff. You know, you're essentially doing every job that is not the writer's job.
I can't believe how much shit you as pencilers memorize. As long as I've been around comics, like, it's just absolutely insane. Like I'm like, you know, 13 pages into the story, and all of a sudden I have to like revisit a scene, and I'm like, seriously, I gotta fucking like, I'm like going like, what was on his desk? What was, like, you know, where was this planter that I just kind of threw in? Like,
it's not even that. It's like half the time you're cursing yourself because you're like, why the fuck did I put this on the table here? Because I want to do a shot and I have to draw this thing from a different angle, but the reference I have is from that angle. And so now I have to like figure out how to redraw that car, that whatever it is, from another angle. And yeah, I mean, it requires a lot of, that's why I spend, and it's never enough, but I spend a lot of time just kind of thinking about the pages. Like I try to kind of, it's an exercise I've done for about 10 years now, where I almost try to draw the page in my head, like go start at the upper left hand corner of the page and try to really think about everything I'm going to draw as I go through the page.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, it's there are nights where I'll be thinking about the page and I'll get kind of halfway through the page and be like, okay, I don't have the bandwidth right now to be able to get through it. But it helps because it's like, you know, they talk about actors learning their lines or something, and they say, you know, write your lines, like write down your lines. And I find that kind of exercise helps me with even with the layouts, because if I can try to lay it out in my head, when I actually do it, things will always change, but at least I have that kind of mental projection that I can start laying down, where I'm like, no, this arm needs to not, I can't cheat this arm. I have to make sure it's in this position, you know. That it's just stuff that enables me to save whatever precious time I can.
So when you're laying out a page and things are going like what I found was, once I had a panel that was working that I kind of liked, I generally will use that as the anchor. And I always had this fantasy that like a really good penciler sort of just is like, okay, well, panel 1 is this and panel 2 will be this. And, you know, they may change things, but I find that it's like, I just kind of get all my ideas out. And then I go, okay, this is very, very cool. And then I start to orchestrate the other panels and the shots that I choose around sort of my best idea.
Right. I do that too. I totally do that. I mean, but there's a double-edged sword to that, I think, because you want to make sure that the panel that you're choosing to be your anchor is the right story beat.
Okay.
Be your anchor. You know what I mean? Like, there's the attitude, and I find this the main complaint that I have, that I find it sticks with kind of early Image Comics critiques, is that a lot of times their anchor panel or their big kind of, you know, I don't even know what it's kind of the panel that they want to attract the most attention.
Right.
When you're reading a story, doesn't always mean the action panel or the panel where, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, sometimes your anchor panel will be something that might not be the most exciting thing to draw. You know what I mean? That's the thing that I try to keep in mind, is that, you know, like, people will beat it through your head, rightfully so. It's like, it's storytelling. So you want to make sure that whatever you're putting your emphasis on, and which the reader is supposedly going to be spending the most time looking at, if they're looking at that page, you know, you put it has the most information. So the brain's going to take the most time to kind of take it in. You want to make sure that that is matching the rhythm that you want for the story you're telling, but also for that moment, you know, like, you don't want that moment to be the guy walking into the bank, getting ready to rob the bank. You know, you can have that moment be the guy walking into the bank, and maybe that's the shot in the movie that is slow motion as you're kind of walking into the bank. Or it can be, boom, like the guy pulling the gun on the teller. You know what I mean? There's a million different ways you can do that. You have to make sure that in your kind of language, in your storytelling language, that's what's coming off as the most, you know, as the panel that you want them to be spending the most time on.
Okay, so let's. Oh wait, is your audio still going? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start to look at some of your art, and then I'm just going to ask you questions about, like, if you want. Do you want to grab another glass of wine before?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, so this will be fun. What I'll do is I'm just going to ask you, like, you know, like, how the fuck do you go about, like, some of the stuff that you do, and it'll be fun. So okay, I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to grab my iPad out so that I have the chat going and I can see it. And yeah, this is really good. Thank you so much for doing this. And here, this is the other thing, Lee. I'll just tell you, I've got like a very high endurance for streaming just because I've been doing it for a while. So if you start getting burned out and you're like, dude, I don't want to go this long, just let me know, because we can stop at an hour. And if you're having fun and you want to hang out for another 20 or 30 minutes, it's fine. Cool. So just so you know, because I didn't say that to you before. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and you'll be able to, I don't know, can you see the chat, or will you be able to see the screen?
No, I can't see the chat.
Okay. Can you see the screen? Like, can you see the screen if I share? Let me see. I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I just want to make sure you can see the art. Can you see Silver Surfer?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Okay. So I went through your Instagram and I grabbed a bunch of stuff. I grabbed some pages from Batman Damned, Noel, Suiciders, and we probably won't be able to go through everything. But okay, so this is a beautiful, beautiful Silver Surfer piece that I assume you recently did.
Yeah, I wrote this and drew this 12-page short story for, I think it's called Marvel.
Okay.
Marvel's doing, it's an anthology. Alex Ross is kind of like the artistic director, because it's all based on, I think what is it, the 25th or 30th anniversary of Marvel's.
Right.
So yeah, so I he just asked me what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do the Silver Surfer and the original the original Human Torch, the android Human Torch. So yeah, so that's this story.
So is this graphite or India ink? I have no idea what medium you use to get this effect. I really don't. And I've seen you work for years, but like the gray on him, is that wash?
Okay, so it's digital, and I have two brushes. I only use two brushes.
Okay.
It's ridiculous how simple it is. So I have Photoshop, obviously, and I'm working on Photoshop, but I have this kind of spackle brush, which gives kind of like, it's like a spray paint spackle.
Right. I can see a little bit.
Right. Okay. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then I have another brush that kind of looks like I just hatched a bunch of lines together. So when I lay it on top of each other and multiply it looks a bit like, you can kind of see it on the board there.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? So what I just do is alternate between the two brushes, and I just work on two layers, and I just paint. Essentially, I just go lay down a layer, and then this actually has a third layer, which is an ink line layer.
Okay.
I stopped doing that after this project, but so I'll do kind of like an ink line layer just to kind of get my masses, you know what I mean? So like the figure has an ink line around it. And then I just go in there and paint in the various areas. So like what I'll just do is just kind of cover the whole thing in that spackle kind of brush, just to give it, looks like a painter would provide an under painting to it, you know? And then I just go in and start drawing and just black, no other tone, just black. And then I'll erase out of that using the same brushes. So it's just a process of kind of laying values on top of each other, and much like a pencil drawing would be, just.
Now, I honestly didn't know that you worked digitally, but now you're not doing all of your work digitally. You do a lot of it traditional, or have you switched?
Yeah, I still do some stuff traditionally, but the thing about digital that really is it's hard for me to beat is it just saves me so much time.
Right.
I mean, a piece like this by hand would probably take maybe 5 days.
Right.
It would take a long time. Digitally, I could do a page like this in 2 or 3 days. So it's like time saved is significant.
Sure.
But also the thing I like the most about digital is it really frees me up to really play around with the elements,
Sure.
So I could, after the fact, when I did this, I did Galactus, and I hadn't planned to do those kind of little Kirby symbols,
Sure.
And after I finished it, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go in and get close and just do symbols, these Kirby, whatever they are,
the like the white stuff on the his armor.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically what that is. It's just and the background, the planet there, the background has I've been getting really into photography, and specifically focal points. So what I'm noticing and really annoys me about older work that I've done is it doesn't have a clear focal point. It's just it's everything has the same attention to it's the same precision, and there's some artists will do the same thing by simplifying the line art, like a John Paul Leon or someone like that will simplify it another way. My way of simplifying the drawing or making it more readable is just starting to apply those focal points like a camera would. So the background is blurred, and then there's the darkest kind of most extreme point of value is the surfer. So just to try to make that pop.
It's interesting. It looks like the only pure black that you really laid on the piece is on the surfer. There's little swatches, but other than that, everything else isn't jet black.
Yeah, there's a really thin film of white over Galactus and the planet, and that is not on surfer, specifically just to push that back and have it recede into the background. But
so this piece was only 2 layers or 3 layers?
Yeah, like 3 layers. I don't like a whole lot of layers on this stuff if I can, just because not in the black and white phase at least, because it just keeps it, too many layers, stuff just gets. It needs to stay as close as I can keep it to like pencil drawing. You know what I mean? Like the real thing. So
this looks. I mean, honestly, like I assumed that a lot of these pieces were traditionally done, and then you would just like after you would scan them, you would kind of go in and give them a little bit of a massage digitally. But I really had no idea. His thigh is fucking incredible. This back thigh that's crouching down, like the reflections on the top of it are just nuts. I feel like I'm seeing like I don't even know, like another planet or maybe like some sort of threat in front of him. It's probably just my imagination, but yeah, it's really interesting.
It's just like, I wish there was some kind of explanation to it, but it's just, I mean, it's just, it's just me trying to find something that looks like it could be anatomy, but those reflective surfaces, especially in some place with stars and planets around it, there would be, I mean, in reality, surfer would probably not have any element of black on him at all. So I just am pushing, I'm just trying to push that as much as I can, the various reflective elements of that. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of bullshit.
I do it too. It's funny because right now, because I'm kind of on a deadline, I was going to ask you about that too. So as you were, I'm going to go to the next piece so we can look at some more. As you started to get more and more detailed with your work, I remember saying this to you, and again, it's one of those things where I probably remember it better than you. But I told you one time, I said, the sacrifices that you're making going towards this style will be challenging right now because people aren't going to want to give you the time, and your ability to do it isn't going to be high enough that they're going to see a value in it. But I said, if you stick to your guns and you get to where I think you want to go with this, it'll pay off tenfold in the long run. And you stuck to your guns and you took your art to a level of detail that's just unreal. So were you getting pushback initially as you moved into more time-consuming work from editorial?
I mean, yes and no. Just because you know how it is when you start off, people want obviously people want to just see results from you. You know what I mean? They don't want to hear your artsy bullshit. They don't want.
They want to make money. They want to make money and sell the comic.
Especially if you're not technically where you want to be, they look at what you're doing, and that's what they don't care about the future, and they don't look at you as an investment at all. But the kind of crazy thing about Wildstorm, and I really do think it comes down to this, is that place you remember. I mean, guys like Michael Lopez, guys like Aaron Weisenfeld could take a year and do the first issue of Team 7. We couldn't take it to that extreme.
No.
There was definitely, on the part of some people there, I think that there was a recognition that I was going to try to kind of go more in that direction.
Yeah.
No, and really at that point in time, the comic industry was in such of a gutter that no one really, I mean, I don't think anybody ever thought that I was going to be anything more than a day player. You know what I mean? Just someone who was kind of there for whatever cover or whatever. There was no, do you remember how it was? It's certainly in the first days there. I mean, really, the guys left at the studio. Carlos was much more of the, he was really respected by the editors and everybody, everybody there. And I mean, like, I think I was much more of a secondary figure. It's like at the beginning of my time. And so I just, you know, I kind of figured out, all right, I'm never going to be a monthly guy, so I might as well try to invest in doing this thing. And as it progressed, the more I did it, the less pushback I got from editorial, but the more pushback I got from other artists.
Really interesting. So yeah. I remember getting sort of sat down when I got to Wildstorm, and they basically said to us, you guys are not going to pull the same shit that phase 1 artists did. I consider myself to be phase 3, meaning that the OGs to me are like Brett Booth, J. Scott Campbell, not Travis kind of, but like Ryan Benjamin, Jim Wills, and then they started bringing in the sort of second wave, which would be whoever it was. And then I'm kind of like, I sort of sneaked in on the third wave or the end of the second wave, and you're maybe fifth wave,
if not sixth. Yeah, because there was
but
Christian Uche before me and Ollie.
Right.
Ollie and Christian Uche came in. They were the wave before me, and Rob.
Yeah.
What was his? Oh God, he was. Yeah.
Rob Stotts.
Yeah, Rob Stotts. Yeah, good too.
So here's what I think happened for you, myself, Carlos, to some extent, is we got to Wildstorm, which is basically like playing on like an all-star football team or basketball team. You have these gods like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. I'm not even a basketball fan, but anyway, I can appreciate the level of skill that team had. But the thing is we weren't going to be given the amount of time that the original artist had to achieve the looks that they did. So what we did is it actually made us stronger in ways, meaning that we couldn't fuck around, but we still wanted the taste of that fucking great art. We wanted to be Travis. We wanted to be Wills. We wanted to be Jim. Jim can get it done, but you know what I'm saying? And so I think in a weird way, we actually benefited not only from the level of skill that those guys had, but because that they were slightly unreliable and we had to be more reliable, we created a little bit more discipline.
Right.
Do you think that might have helped you too a little bit?
I definitely think it did. But the one thing that I do think is, excuse me, is the case is, I mean, I was only at Wildstorm for 6 years.
Okay.
I wasn't there for that long, and I think that when I moved to Italy, which was end of 2003, I remember there was this point. It was a specific point in time where I really was, I was working on Lex Luthor, Man of Steel. And that was the kind of tipping point for me where people were, at DC, people were really wanting results. Like people were, you know, and I started to kind of halfway through that push this totally other thing. I started to push the third issue. I just started to push this pencil rendering style
third issue of what?
Of Lex Luthor, of Luthor. Okay. I started to do this kind of, the third issue took me the longest, and it was because I was just getting into this rendering thing. And I was into Chuck Close at the time, so I was doing all this cubist kind of stuff, and that was too when the Phil Hale thing really kind of, I was really, you know, getting obsessive about these kind of painters. And I wanted to do that in the art. And because I think because I wasn't at the studio at the time, I was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to take the time that I'm going to take. And so there was an element of that kind of came through when I left. And that's also when I remember kind of starting to get the most kickback from other artists that I knew. And it was kind of this, I was going, because I think I'd started at Wildstorm and I'd gone in this kind of John Paul Leon direction where he had really become a major influence of mine, but I was never really, my brain doesn't work the way his does. So
Right.
I've been able to kind of strip away as much of my stuff. I was the opposite. I was almost adding layers to
Right.
things, you know? And in the artistic, you know how it is in the comic book artistic community, I wouldn't go so far as to call it bro science, but it is a bit like bro science in weightlifting, where you have these kind of dogmas and doctrines that people live by, and it's kind of like they kind of use them as a fix-all, or at least words that you should live by.
Right.
That tends to come from this Alex Tothian strip away as much as you can.
Oh, right.
Simplify as much as you can. And that's the kind of the way to enlightenment, you know what I mean? And at the time that I was at Wildstorm specifically, I was really a kind of a believer, you know. It was easy for me at that point in time to kind of go like, well, I should be doing that. I should be simplifying as much as possible, and things should be going in that direction. But that's not the way my brain worked. That wasn't how my art wasn't gonna develop that way. You know what I mean? It's just those problems were being solved by those guys in other ways that I need to come up with my own solutions to problems with drawing that I had.
Yeah.
And so by kind of going in the opposite direction, it was kind of the beginning of a learning curve for me that became like a very, very long learning curve, which was pushing the realism, pushing the textural element of it. And then that kind of became this boulder that continued to kind of get bigger and bigger, because the moment you do one element of your page like that, if all of it doesn't look like that, it looks like bad stuff. You know, it looks like, it looks like you know, things aren't existing in the same world.
So I was gonna, I'll let you finish your I'm sorry. I remember when you were designing your first Batman for Batman Deathblow, and this really had an impact on me, and it's one of like a small handful of things that I remember from Wildstorm as very pivotal moment. You toiled for weeks on your Batman design, and you were so methodical and thoughtful in terms of what materials would be used, how it would be stitched together, the functionality of it, the brutality of what he had to do. And I had never seen anyone at Wildstorm think so much about how they were going to handle a character. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Oops. Because I thought that was really interesting, and it really paid off for you, because your Batman is very iconic now.
And do you remember the argument Jim and I got into? This was when we were in the last office I was in there, where you were with Sandra, and I think it was Eric Canetti and Dustin were also there at the time. And do you remember the time that Jim was working on Hush, and I was working on Metropolis Designs?
Yeah.
And Jim and I got into that kind of argument over Gotham City.
Yes, because he goes, no one buys comics to look at backgrounds.
Yeah. But it was hilarious, because he was, you know, he's pushing my buttons I think purposefully, and also kind of I think he did it too in kind of a way. He wanted to make me think through my reasoning. Like, he didn't want to just hear me spout some shit.
Sure.
You know, Gotham City needs to look like this because, and I think part of Jim's attitude was why. You know, he wanted to know why, and so he and I got into this conversation about the differences between Metropolis and how that would be radically different from Gotham, and then we started talking about costumes and all this different other stuff. And I remember he was just the thing was like, why why shouldn't there be gargoyles in Metropolis? It was like, they can be different kinds of gargoyles. And I was like, that's not a Metropolis thing. It's big statues are fine, but not gargoyles. That's a that's a Batman thing. And Jim continued to push and push. And I remember I was just so frustrated. At one point, I had to walk out of the office.
I've seen that happen to more than a few people, not with Jim, but just in general, like just conversations that you're just sitting there going like, oh fuck, this is getting like kind of like intense.
There was a lot of those. Yeah.
But it was a tough crew. It's funny, is this sort of has faded for me, but when I was first learning to pencil, I would have your voice in the back of my head when I would be bullshitting something, and I'd be like, Lee's gonna see this and he's gonna know that I don't know what I'm drawing.
we were so
call it art Nazis.
That came from the kind of attitude, I think, at the studio, where it was like a sport, man. I don't know any other way of really describing it. It was like,
yeah,
you'd put something down and you'd have, and that voice for me was JJ Kirby,
right.
JJ me was just gonna, if I drew a hand that didn't work, he was gonna erase it. Like I was gonna come back in the next morning and that was gonna be gone. And it was sticky note saying try again or something.
Oh man. Oh, these pages are amazing. Oh, this is so good. And this is digital as well?
Yeah. All that stuff is all the same thing, same exact thing.
Now, let me ask you this, so when you, like, say you get asked to do a cover for something, in the back of your mind, do you think financially, like, it would make more sense for me to do this as a traditional piece of art because you know that the original would be so valuable, or are you able to push that aside?
I mean, I haven't done any really. I did the first cover to Damned in traditional. I did that traditionally.
This piece?
No, the first cover, the kind of close up of the
okay.
But I haven't. I've never really thought of. I mean, of course, you think about like, oh, if I had done this by hand, it would be great to sell. But
yeah,
it's not really about that to me, because usually and it's not that it's like money doesn't matter. It's not like, as much as I would love to be some kind of Scott Walker-esque figure in comics, like that obviously the economics of it comes into play, but usually with at least what I'm doing now, digital also offers me a textural possibility that I would have to work so big to be able to make that happen. I would have to literally work, I think, 3 times the size that I would typically work in order to do some of the textural stuff that's become so important to me. So it's just selfish on my part, because I just want to exercise that textural itch. Like, I just want to scratch that,
Sure.
So I do it digitally to kind of be able to get in there and do it.
Well, I mean, it's like we both are big fans of fine art, and just so people know, is maybe next week, if Lee can do it, we're actually going to do another live stream where we go over Phil Hale's work. And if Lee is down, when I was getting ready for this today, I would love to have you back actually a third time, and let's look at like Leyendecker.
Oh yeah. I
would love to do a Leyendecker show where we just sit and geek out on Leyendecker for an hour or so.
So, I mean, super influential for me, but I think everybody at the studio, Leyendecker was a big presence, I remember.
God, this is great. Fuck. But Chuck Close is an interesting thing, because Chuck, when he would do his grayscale portraits, they were huge, but he would draw literally like the pores of the skin,
Yeah. Yeah, and that stuff, that's the kind of stuff that I was getting into in the early 2000s. Yeah, I remember Scott Doombeer, I think he showed me a Chuck Close book or something at that time, and I was like, oh my God, this is, it was that kind of thing that I don't know why I thought at the time that would be applicable to comics. It was almost like, it just didn't really matter. In fact, when I look at that stuff now, they just did this art book. It was a French art book originally, and they're publishing it DC's publishing it at the end of this month. And there's a lot of stuff from that era. You know, there's a lot of the kind of cubist Chuck Close rendering kind of stuff. And when I look at stuff now,
I didn't realize that that's where that cubist stuff came from in your work. I didn't ever put that together.
Yeah, that's all Chuck Close, and that's that moment in time where it was. I don't ask me why, man. It looks super weird now when I look at it, but it's at the time it was just the way my brain was working.
Yeah. Oh, this is such a beautiful piece. Oh my gosh, this thing is crazy. This looks now. Is this actually on artboard, or did they just overlay it onto a?
There's an original of that. Yeah, but it's not okay. So this is an interesting thing about that book. Or maybe not interesting, I don't know, but I'll tell you anyway. So that the first, I think 20 pages of that book were done by hand in an original size.
Right.
Because I hadn't decided to change the format yet into this kind of black label format. And so that is actually digitally altered.
Mm-hmm.
The original of it is thinner and kind of just a bit stubbier.
Okay.
And I had to actually go in there digitally and alter all 20 of those first pages. And it was a fucking pain in my ass like you wouldn't believe.
I can imagine.
Time, because I didn't want people to be able to see the transition, you know what I mean? From like and what that did was actually give me my brushes in Photoshop, because by doing a lot of those kind of, I needed to find a way to integrate what I was digitally adding a little with the pencil work. And so I needed to find out what the best kind of solution was to do that digitally. And so I just, after that, I just started working that way. And I'd kind of done a little bit, it's not the same, but I'd done a lot of Rorschach was digital as well. Suiciders too, but it was a different style. I mean, I was doing a different thing in both of those books. That's all by.
This is traditional, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Man, it's fucking nuts. It's so beautiful.
All that stuff is, it's just, I mean, that's like Travis. I wish it was like Travis, but you know what I mean? Like you pencil render the whole thing, and then you go back on top of it with ink washes of varying opacity, and you just darken the darkest darks, and that, you know, because the pencil's only going to take you in value so far, you know. You're not going to get black unless you use like a charcoal or something. Yeah. So all the blackest blacks is just black ink, and then there's a lot of ink wash on that just to kind of smooth the two.
Yeah. And this has got a little bit of a Phil Hale vibe, like some of the wrinkles and stuff. You're real good with fabric, where you not only do folds, but you do like it looks wrinkled. You know, that's pretty nuts.
That's the James Bama.
Okay, right. Yeah, like the what's the character that he used to draw, the main one?
Doc Savage. Yeah,
right. Yeah, that wrinkled shirt.
Yeah, and that all comes from Norman Rockwell. I mean, that is like Norman Rockwell was one of his big gods, you know. So that all kind of goes back to that. And that Rockwell goes back to Leyendecker, you know. So all that kind of Oh, that piece is awful. Oh
yeah. Okay, I'll move past it for you. So you've written how many books? I mean, you don't have to give me an exact number, but I mean, like, you wrote Suiciders, you've written We Are Robin.
Mm-hmm.
And was it interesting actually writing for someone else, actually drawing? Because someone drew the second series of Suiciders, correct?
Yeah. It was it was cool. I enjoyed it. It just because it was. You know, I don't consider myself a writer. You know, I don't think I'm great at it. I'm writing's harder than I think a lot of people in comics give it it's a difficult, at least for me, it was a difficult thing. And I'm not the kind of writer who is fast. I'm much like art. It's like it takes me a long time. So working for another artist was great because the writing process kind of being so time consuming, it was nice to then not have to draw that, because on Suiciders, the first Suiciders book, I mean, it was just like, it was taxing, you know what I mean? In terms of like the amount of time I spent writing it and then the amount of time I spent drawing it. But I learned a lot about, I definitely learned a lot in that point in time about what I wanted to do in the future. That was really the most kind of important thing that came out of that experience. Because like comic books tend to be fairly simple stories for the most part. You know what I mean? Like you definitely have good examples of more complex kind of styles of storytelling, but it's hard for, you watch like a Korean horror movie or something that doesn't follow these more Western storytelling tropes, you know what I mean? And it'll blow your mind, right? And you'll be like, I want to do something like that in comics and, or whatever the next story I'm going to do. And you get so much pushback from that for doing anything kind of non-traditional,
Yeah, it's funny.
And doing Suiciders, like, ultimately that really taught me about okay, well, I don't give a shit. I just want to do challenging stories. And in Batman Damned, that's the thing that Brian and I talked about. I was like, I don't really care if I know that I want to do like a David Lynchian style story here. Like, people are going to bitch and it's going to be not everybody's cup of tea, but that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Do you own Suiciders?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Good. I was thinking that would be a great movie. Like the idea.
Yeah. I mean, nobody really responded to Suiciders when it came out. I think it's what was the big comment I got? I think who was it that told me it's a lot of tragedy to handle in a time when shit is already so dour.
Oh.
I think that came into play a little bit, but yeah.
I've seen you knock out commissions. It's funny because this reminds me of like when I see you do commissions at Comic-Con. It's insane to watch you knock out these pieces. Like they're so good, and it's interesting how you go in with the shapes.
Yeah. I don't, I've always loved those guys. Aaron does this really well. Carlos can do this so well too. It's all line work. You know what I mean? It's like, and you like this kind of stuff too. Like I've always been super jealous of Mark Silvestri and guys Frank Frazetta, that kind of feathered line and cross hatching guys who can just create the drawing purely online. But my brain just doesn't work that way. It's easier for me to think about masses, and then I can kind of work within the masses.
Silvestri is quite an anomaly. I think like he really kind of had a gift from God, because he really is a phenomenal artist. It's I
He's one of the best, I think.
It's a shame he doesn't talk about his art very much, and I think it's a big frustration for me. Is he's kind of like the business guy, and he's the guy that is selling properties, but it's like I just want like an hour interview with him talking about like drawing.
He's one of those guys that I think he's the most talented of that generation. Like of those kind of, if you want to put him in with the image guys. Yeah, I know he's a little before those guys, but I mean, he's still getting better. I mean, that Batman book that is it out yet? I don't know.
No, not that I know of. I keep wondering. It's been a few years. This Superman is insane, dude. The anatomy is so awesome.
It's that arm is like, that forearm is like, it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, I'll move away from. Oh, look at Hulk.
But like I've seen that first Batman issue of his whatever.
Okay, wow.
It is like Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That's the kind of crazy level he's gotten with the line art, and it's staggering. I mean,
They
I don't think we really know how good he is.
He's got a guy that I'm forgetting his name right now, approached me about possibly helping Mark finish it. There was a couple of years ago, but they had seen my black drawing work and they were kind of sniffing around. I said I was definitely down to lend a hand, but nothing ever came of it. But it was flattering that they even cared. And I actually sent Mark all the black drawings just so he could get an idea of what I was capable of. But I think it's better he just does it himself.
I think he's inking that himself, but dude, you would be awesome on that stuff because that's right up your alley with your attention to line weight and kind of the way you can layer those values in line. I mean, I'm really curious to see what you do with your own stuff and what direction you're going to go with that book, because you definitely have those influences. I've been into Silvestri since I've known you, and
well, yeah. Is the heavy metal story, there's just not time to go that route, honestly. So I had to come up with sort of a different game plan for that book. Blaster Kid will be more flexing, I think, kind of more intimate muscles, artistic muscles. But heavy metal is like, I got to get in and actually do work, It's no joke. It's a huge undertaking, but I had to get out of inking, and it was a great opportunity to be done inking. So
yeah, no, I mean, it's like you're just all the stuff you've worked on. If you, like I said, Chris Pacello, all that kind of stuff. It's there. It's in your hard drive. You just need to find a way to make it your own.
Okay, so look, I think we should wrap it up. I don't want to keep you too long. This was amazing. I really, really can't thank you enough for doing this, but I also don't want to completely capitalize your time.
Thank you.
But so let's talk about this for a little bit, because this is actually very, very cool and something that I'm a big fan of. And you entered the world of statues. You actually have quite a few, not only just representations in statue, but Prime One, which to me is like the grail of grail. Those guys don't mess around when they make a statue.
They're awesome, man. It's
I've got a folder full of them. We'll look at them real quick before I let you go. But how many Prime One statues do you have of your stuff?
I have 7.
7. Oh my!
Not of my stuff though. I have how many of mine? I have there's Deadman, Batman Damned. There's the Batman Royal Design, the Joker. They just announced the Catwoman, so there's 5 based on mine. Yeah. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
Like I have the
Sideshow is great. Prime One just is like these nuts.
The crazy thing is I got to go to Japan 3 years ago with them and kind of got to see. I mean, they had a whole booth full of their product. I mean, it's staggering how insane they are about attention to detail and about precision. Like they will go back to correct the most minute details in a statue that most people probably would never see, but that's how into it they are. They're that kind of obsessive. And I mean, they just, that I don't just say it, but they're really the best, I think, on the market. Like they when you see the stuff in person, my studio's not fully set up here. When it is, we can do this again, and I'll show them. But it's staggering how good they are. I mean, they're like the Batman Damned statue. The leather texture in his costume is, I mean, when you light it, like when you light it certain ways, from a distance, it just looks real. There's just elements of it that when I walk into they used to all be in my living room, and people would walk into the house, and it was like that was all anybody could talk about after that.
Of
Like,
course, no, the presence of those things is insane.
yeah, I mean, like that. Oh my God, they did the Dead Man statue based on my Dead Man design, and the insanity of that kind of that texture, the skin on his like the texture of the skin is I mean, they're pretty amazing, man.
Yeah, let's look at them really quick. So Sheldon Martin asked, he did a super chat. He wanted to know if you have used Copic markers for any of your comic work. I'm going to assume we'll say pages. I mean, maybe a convention you've used them, but
no, never for published stuff. I don't like Copic markers.
okay.
I've used convention sketches. I used to use them more for convention stuff because they dry quickly. But now anymore, I just take a bottle of ink and I water it down and I just do ink washes just there in the moment. But the thing I don't like about Copics is there's a grain to them that this is an anal artistic thing, but there's a grain that they have. You have to have specific types of paper,
right?
Good, at least in my opinion.
Sure.
And so I just prefer watered down ink with a brush.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so I'm gonna share the screen again, and we're gonna look at some of the statues really quick. I hope that these are all yours, and that I didn't grab something that wasn't. Let's.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so you can see this. Okay, I'm gonna go into Photoshop really quick. So this is the Batman Damned, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's about 32 inches big. The statues, they're pretty.
They're 1/3 scale, prime one.
Pretty massive.
The bases are ridiculous.
Yeah.
So do you send them designs for the base and for the pose?
Everything. Yeah, everything. And then it's I've worked with a couple different. Yeah, there you go. There's the kind of 3 Batman
Sick.
statues. Yeah. So that what I do is I come up with kind of the basic design, and then a 3D sculptor comes in and kind of makes it work, because there's an engineering aspect to those statues. Like,
right.
You have to make sure that they're not going to fall over. Dead Man is a real challenge for that.
The Dead Man piece, right? So people that have never seen one of these in person, because I've seen these in person at Comic-Con, this thing literally probably comes up to like your waist. Like if you were standing, this is fucking gigantic.
So I'm saying, like when they were in the living room and you would walk into the house, I mean, they take up, if there's 5 of those things in the living room, they take up so much space that you can't. I mean, that's all you look at. You know what I mean? Like, it's they're just, it's ridiculous the amount of heads that you can interchange, and you can kind of see them, like all the different various Joker heads.
Yeah, the Joker heads are so creepy.
Yeah, that Joker is
with Batman crucified on the base. I mean, come on, how badass is that? Look at his shoes. He's got like snakeskin kicks.
that was the designer knocked that out of the park, man. He just rocked that. That statue is really, when it came together, even the back of it, like the way the jacket is kind of flowing and everything is really it came together really, really nicely. Definitely is a really accurate, representation of the stuff that I do.
Oh my gosh, they're so creepy. Are the eyes glass?
No, they're just painted differently. I don't know how they do this, man, but the eyes look like they have a glaze. Like,
they probably do, honestly.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, the eyes look creepy as fuck.
Yeah, his teeth too are super disturbing.
Yeah.
Look at this one.
2 are superposable, so like you can definitely change the cape position and
oh right, okay, interesting.
Yeah, they're kind of this leather material.
Man, oh, look at his shirt, man. It's like crazy. It's like corduroy.
Yeah.
His pants, interesting. It's got the pleat, but then it also has almost like this chainmail sort of scale in it.
Yeah, I mean that's all the the sculptor. I mean, he kind of takes my designs and then amps up the textural element of it. And
so I asked Kennedy this: what's in the pouches, Lee? What does Batman keep in his pouches?
I mean, I could tell you.
Do you know? Let me know. I want to know. So what's in this pouch right here that's behind
I
it?
don't know. I mean, you just figure he'd have a first aid kit, right?
Okay.
I would have kind of folded batarangs, and I think one of the accessories he has is a folded batarang.
Yeah.
He's got to have some kind of binoculars or something like that.
Right.
Some kind of fingerprint duster kit, right?
Okay.
He's got to have something that's gonna. I mean, I kind of imagine him hanging that grapple gun kind of on one of those hooks. You know what I mean? Like he's got the kind of repelling harness thing going on there. So
is this a knife tucked into the back of his sleeve right here, or a batarang? What is that?
Oh, it's just these. They kind of did this in the new movie that the Pattinson design kind of has elements of this, but I kind of imagine it being this kind of tunic or whatever it is, and then there's kind of these pieces on top that are kind of have armor. You know what I mean? That it's kind of stitched on top of it to imitate anatomy to make movement a little bit easier to protect him.
And then these can pull out, right? Like on his arms, the forearm. These are like batarangs or something, right? Like that pull out in theory.
I always picture them as being kind of things he'd use in a fight to kind of gash or even like climbing kind of, like climbers have those things that they hooks or whatever they use on walls to help pull themselves
right.
Like that,
This is a very, very functional outfit. So what do you think that the material of his shoulder pads is? Is this almost like is this malleable, or is this like a very hard Kevlar like metal or something? What is this part made of?
I pictured it being kind of like a football player, like not the same material, but kind of that idea with something covering it.
Would it have a tiny bit of give, or is this like pretty much like?
I mean, I picture it being like a football getup where it's like it's got to have some give because he's got to be able to move around, but at the same time, the main purpose is just to like keep him from dying.
So. With his cape, I've asked people about this. I'm fascinated by Batman. Honestly, it's funny. So did you worked on Batman about how many years into your career? It was Batman Deathblow. Was that like 4 or 5 years into your career?
I think it was. No, I started Batman Deathblow in 2001, so I started in '97, so 4 years.
4 years, yeah. So like his cape, do you feel that his cape is one size, or do you actually said something very interesting, I'm just remembering it now, is you said that you kind of felt that like you should never see Batman's feet. Wasn't that like a quote from you way back in the day?
Yeah, because I thought that he would have like this I thought the cape would kind of be like a trench coat, you know what I mean? Like It would be like this thing where
do you play with the size of the cape? Like, does it ever get longer in your?
No, I don't do that. I don't do that. I know a lot of guys who like that and like to kind of make it super long, or there's like the Bisley, kind of Batman, or the Kelly Jones with this giant thing. I like it to kind of stay the same.
Right. See, this is the minutia. Now, is this your work? I saw this on Instagram.
That's my Catwoman. They announced that. Yeah, I think that's still the prototype.
Okay, it's nice. She's pretty.
I think there's like 4 heads for that too, 4 switch out heads, and there's some stuff that I know they're still tweaking on that. Like I think they're still tweaking the size of the arms and the hand and stuff like that. But
you really I mean, I know that this is a design based on your ideas, but this material looks very durable. Like I believe that someone would run around the city and fight crime in something like this, and this actually provides protection. I like the functionality of it.
I mean, that's the idea, but I mean, I put her in heels, which aren't really
sure.
But that's just I just like cute. I just like
sure. She's cute. Look, and she's got some stuff she stole. That little
yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
switch out head.
sliding around or doing whatever,
Yeah.
just have the kind of certain parts of her costume have got to be more durable than others. But
then this is like Jim's design from way back, huh? The Catwoman goggles.
yeah, there's a little bit of Darwin Cook in there. There's a little bit of Jim. There's I like those designs the best. Yeah, those, I remember Jim doing all that Hush stuff in the studio, and that was definitely kind of.
Here's Dead Man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you were saying Dead Man was that? Oh, I see. Because he's sort of levitating, so there was a balance issue with like actually getting it actually.
Yeah, there's an engineering kind of thing because he's kind of got one foot that's on this very thin bone, so he can't put his weight down on.
Okay, right. I see it right here.
Yeah, but it's amazing how they solve the problem because I mean he looks like he's
right. Yeah, this bone is supported by the tombstone and then the rock. So this is a very solid like piece right here.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, here you go. You can see it here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Lee, dude, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I hope this was fun for you. People will enjoy this for years to come.
No, man, it was great to just talk to you. It's been forever since we've just chat, so it was cool to chit chat.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Do you work tonight? Will you work more? Or are you done for the evening?
I'm done. I've been working all day, so I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna start working today. So, all right.
Be safe.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to end the broadcast, but we'll be able to say goodbye in the private chat room for a second. So, all right, thank you guys all for tuning in. Make sure to smash the like, and we can't thank Lee enough for doing this. And Lee will be back. We're going to this was my wish list for you, Lee. Was I wanted to look at Phil Hale with you, which and I've said Linedecker, and then I was maybe thinking like Jeremy Geddes or Geddes. I don't know.
I love
that.
His work. He's one of my favorites of all time.
So I might hit you up to come back so we can do nerd talk and talk about some art. Because the thing is you actually got me into Phil Hale and a few other artists that were definitely off the beaten track at that time. But yeah, no, I mean I can't thank you enough for getting me into Phil's work.
Yeah, he and Jeremy both. I think Jeremy's a genius.
Yeah,
these guys are both.
Yeah,
I can't. Anytime they do anything, Jeremy, like he's just been posting some pencil drawings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how a human being does that. I don't know how he's able to. He still gives me that thing where I look at it and I just it's unfathomable to me how he's able to do that. So.
I agree. What's funny is I met Phil Hale briefly at Comic-Con maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and I know we're talking about Jeremy, but I was actually genuinely nervous to even ask Phil Hale to sign I had brought Goad. I don't even know why or how I knew to bring it, but I had it in my backpack. It was the only book that I brought to ever get signed. I don't really collect autographs. I was so nervous to talk to him. I can't even explain it. It was very funny. I was like, this guy's like a genius and he's a great artist and he's like, I just felt like I was like a douchebag.
I trust me. I did the same thing. That was, he might have been the last artist that I met where I realized that I really, we have nothing to say, not because he was any, but just, it was at that point, there's a level of, fan kind of, there's a level of fandom there that goes a little too far. So it's probably better,
I meant to ask you too, because you had mentioned that you do work digitally. So what do you work on? What's do you work on a Cintiq or what's the, it's Cintiq 27?
Whatever this is. I don't
know. Like a big one.
It's not the giant.
Oh, you have the 22? 22?
The middle size one, yeah. Okay,
I have the 27, but I think the 22 would have sufficed. But 22 was very difficult to get now. Like you can't really find it easily. There's a size that kind of they don't make anymore. That's the favorite.
I mean, mine is.
That's why. It's because you've had it for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I got my Cintiq. I mean, they're durable. That I'll say that about them. They last. At least mine's lasted a long time. I mean, it's so scratched up because I'm so heavy-handed with it.
Yeah. And
It's
then
great.
I just to be respectful for you, do you have anything that you wanted to promote? I have a link to your art dealer and then also to your Instagram. But like, I mean, do you have anything that you want to like say? Hey, your art book is coming out soon, correct?
I was like, I don't think I have anything.
All right. I
Yeah.
feel like it's already out, but it's out in different parts of the world.
So a French version of it came out because there's I should say this too because they're fucking awesome. Urban Comics in France, they publish all the DC stuff, and they are kind of anytime you've seen what DC's doing now with the black and white editions of books that they do, and they have the black and white covers,
Right.
that all comes from Urban. They did that. They've been doing that stuff for years now, and they make goofy comic books look so elegant. And I mean, they decided they wanted to do an art book line, and the first one was based on my stuff, and it's a beautiful. I mean, it's huge. I mean, the French edition, it's 360 pages. It's a massive book. So the book that's coming out from DC at the end of this month, it comes out. I think the 26th it comes out. I've got it actually. So
that's the same book as what from France.
It's smaller, so it's a smaller edition. So the French book is literally like maybe this much.
So I want to get the French book then.
The French book is massive.
Yeah.
But this is I mean, it's made for, you know, like comic book bookshelves, I think, and stuff like that. It's got maybe 8 pages, I think, added. It's got a slightly larger cover gallery.
Okay, interesting.
But it covers pretty much everything through Batman Damned, and it's got, you know, 30 or 40 covers in it. It's you know, it's a sizable book that pretty much spans, like, you know, the first 20 years of my career. So yeah, that comes out the 26th of January.
Very cool. That's awesome. Well, again, thanks so much, Lee. I really, really appreciate it. I love you so much. I'm so happy for everything. You worked so hard and you wanted it so bad, and you stuck to your guns. And that's really, I think, a good takeaway for people is know what you want and just fucking go for it. And you have to commit to it, right?
Do it.
Yeah.
That's
all right.
Advice. Do it.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to you guys all later. Hold on, Lee. I'm going to say goodbye to you in the private room.
All right, man. All right.
I'm ending the broadcast right now.